1, 2, 3.
The following is a Laura Flanders Show audio exclusive.
I'm Laura. Here's my latest Uncut exclusive with Winona LaDuke, Executive Director of Honor the Earth. She has a vision of indigenous power sovereignty based on solar and wind power that she'll tell you all about.
Hello, I'm Veronica. I'm also known as Winona LaDuke from the White Earth Reservation in northern Minnesota, and I'm the director of Honor the Earth. It's really a question about who gets to control the infrastructure of the future. I mean, Joe Biden has a big infrastructure plan, and we're looking at a $9 billion pipeline, which is kind of the equivalent of the wall, up against the, U.S.-Mexico border. The point is that this is a non-essential infrastructure project paid for by a Canadian corporation, which, begins to look a lot like blood oil when it hits the ground, when instead of an escrow account to make sure that they can pay for their accidents, they've got an escrow account to pay for the police. So far, allocating about $750,000 to Minnesota police in anticipation of millions of dollars of expenditures to repress people. If it was such a good idea, why you need so many cops? Someone might ask that question. But across the terrain, you got kind of the end of the party in fossil fuels. Why do I say that? Because no one's investing in the tar sands anymore. They all left, including the Teck mine. That was the largest tar sands mine projected. That closed down last year. No, not going to continue. And then you see these pipelines that are going. I mean, the Constitution pipeline isn't going to happen, right? The Jordan Cove pipeline got canceled. That was the one to the Pacific Northwest by Pembina, another Canadian multinational. And then, of course, the Keystone XL, another Canadian multinational, trying to peddle tar sands. I mean, so what you got, and then you have the Trans Mountain pipeline, which I think at one point I just call it Trudeau, the Justin Trudeau pipeline, because after all, he bought it from Kinder Morgan. And so what you have is Canada with no plan B at the end of the tar sands era, trying to dump as much tar sands on us, as they can so that they could keep bolstering up their economy. I mean, the fact is that Canada's economy they're a petro-state. They're predicated on how much tar sands they can extract. And I'm sorry to say, it's the dirtiest oil in the world. It costs $82 a barrel to get it out of the ground. So it doesn't work out well. But across the north, you see these proposals to put in more tar sands pipelines so that Canada can continue. And it is all the same battle. The question is like in our case, it's the equivalent of 50 new coal-fired power plants. Why would you put in 50 new coal-fired power plants, Mr. Biden or Mr. Walz, the governor of Minnesota? Why would you put those in and pretend like you had a plan for climate? You don't have a plan if you're putting in 50 new coal-fired power plants. I got a 3-year-old granddaughter, and it's 2020. So, it should be 33 in 2050. And I'm thinking, well, I consumed all that oil. I'm leaving her like horrible situation. So what if I try to fix it before it all goes bad? It's not like generations ahead. It's like I look at my little granddaughter and think, if we don't fight this pipeline off, there ain't going to be water for you to drink or fish in. If we don't fight this pipeline off, this forest's going to burn. That's what I'm looking at. And, people get in this kind of sedated, I know y'all live in a city and you probably spend most of your time looking at a box about the size of a cell phone. But the fact is that the world is in climate chaos all around us. You can't pick a fight with Mother Earth and expect to win. You ain't going to win a battle with Mother Earth, and we're going to get our butts kicked. And so what I want to do is be on her side, not on the side of Enbridge or Exxon or any of those Syncrude, any of those Canadian multinationals. They've only been around a little while. You just got to look around, and we're already living in a world full of catastrophes of biblical proportions. I never saw anything like this, and none of us did. I mean, I just said, someone sent me some pictures of Alaska where villages are underwater. We live in a time when the entire West Coast was on fire, as was all of Australia. We are going into one of the driest seasons on record, and I project it's going to be a really horrible year for forest fires. And then to the south, you have like torrential storms that destroy cities, people, countries. And then, to the east, we've had political crisis, a pretty great crisis. And then to the north, you have the melting of the polar ice caps and the glaciers. So that's all pretty much catastrophes of biblical proportions. Add in a couple things like the giant grasshopper locust invasion of Africa and the pandemic. What do you got? I'd say it's time to move on. I'd say every indicator is time to smack up and wake up and move on. We could talk about that by 2050, the sea levels are going to rise, cities are going to be increasingly underwater, and the world is in all of this chaos, not because of something else, but because of us. And so that's why we're going to stop Enbridge. That's why we're going to stop these other pipelines. My heart goes out to all of you people in those urban areas who don't know much about the rest of the world like us. My heart goes out to you. We're here. So think of it this way. We live here for 10,000 years and didn't mess everything up. Think of it this way. Like when they signed our treaties, you could drink all the water from every river and creek. The last treaties of my reservation was signed. You could still ride a horse next to a buffalo herd for 3 days solid and not lose the herd. Think about that. Think about that. That's when America was great. And now we live in this world where we don't even remember what we lost, except for some of us, because we still live there. And they say that on a worldwide scale, Indigenous people represent about 4% of the world's population, but we live with 75% of the world's biodiversity. That's where we live. There's 500 federally recognized tribes, and I live on White Earth Reservation in northern Minnesota, where it is all around us, a land that is full of wild things, I live with bears and wolves and beavers and butterflies and frogs. I live with all them guys, all the fish, they all live with us. And so if you want to save the world, you got to save the wild places. You can't just replant it in a tree plantation. It's not a forest. And the thing is that, on a worldwide scale, the two places that are the most lungs for the planet are the Amazon rainforest and the boreal forest in north. I live in the boreal forest. And that forest in the north is the lungs. It is all trees, and it's getting fractionated, not just by pipelines, but by mining corporations and logging corporations. And so these battles that Indigenous people have are battles to protect everything that is our life, everything that is about us, but it's also fundamentally going to save you. That's why you need to be on our side, And if you can't come out to the front lines, you can send us some money. You could send to the front lines, and you could also put some political pressure out there because, we know how that works. We know that Indian people aren't seen as significant, except we're now on the Secretary of Interior. And except for, of course, we got the vote out for Biden in a lot of states that, was the Indian vote that counted, like Arizona, Michigan, and Wisconsin. So, we're here and we're going to keep fighting, and you should join us. So this is not like an Indigenous people struggle. This is really a question of who gets to control the Great Lakes. Why am I saying that? Because look, the Enbridge company moves 75% of the tar sands oil into the United States. They have something called the Main Line, which crosses through Minnesota. There's 6 lines there. And then it goes through Wisconsin, and then it goes through Michigan under the Straits of Mackinac. Well, that pipe was put in on the Straits of Mackinac in 1953. It's older than me. Yep, older than me. Amazing. You can believe that. But the point is that I'm in fine shape, but the pipe is not. That's not a good idea at all. Or, a 70-year-old pipe is not a good idea. And so what's happened is that Michigan has been for 2 years, Enbridge really wants to keep that profit going. Although they built a new pipe in Canada, they could put Canada at risk instead of us, but no, they want to keep going because they want to keep upping their tar sands sales. And they live in some fantasy that electric cars aren't going to overtake them. Right? They live in some fantasy of milking that last bit of profit out at the end of the fossil fuel era. And so they refused to shut down their pipeline. The governor of Michigan, after 2 years of consultations, massive scientific studies, said, holy buckets, that thing goes with, everything we value. So she exercised what's called the public trust. The public trust doctrine, which says that the governor, the person who has the public trust, has the responsibility to protect it. In this case, against a Canadian multinational. She ordered Enbridge out. Michigan ordered Enbridge out on March 12th and 13th. I went out there, but they aren't going to move. They refused. They rebuked her and said they would continue operating and said that the state of Michigan, which issued them the permit in 1953, doesn't have the jurisdiction to revoke the permit. And so, my fellow Americans, let me ask you, who has the jurisdiction to revoke the permit of a Canadian pipeline corporation? That's a question that all of us should be asking because Enbridge has $23 billion worth of old pipes in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. And oh my God, I bet you got a lot of old pipes out there too, wherever you are. Who's going to clean those up? I feel like the corporation that put them in and benefited and received billions in profits should remove those pipes. So what we are fighting is a new pipeline, because no pipe is better than a new pipe. We don't even want a new pipe because we don't think that they should expand tar sands extraction. Enbridge says it'll increase tar sands extraction by 10% if they get in this pipe. And we say, no, it's not going to happen. Besides that, we say somebody needs an exit strategy where the Canadian multinational thinks it can just rebuke us all and say, we ain't moving a pipe. Even if our easement is over, even if the party is over, we'll operate illegally. That's what they're doing, operating illegally. Michigan said they're going to seize the profits. So this is kind of this bigger question that I have, which is a question of American infrastructure. And what we want is infrastructure for people, not for oil companies. Like, we could do $9 billion worth of pipes, water and sewer. Maybe that'd fix Flint. That's what we need to do, is pipes for people, not for oil companies. My sister in this struggle, Tanya Abbott, has a 12-step recovery program for fossil fuel addicts. Pretty much we all got to go on it, because we're all addicted. We're like so accustomed to it, and no one's asking questions anymore. Like, how come I have 12 different kinds of chargers? Like, why couldn't they make one that we could all use? That's a little question about the fossil fuels and plastics. Why do we need $50 million worth of new clothing made of fossil fuels every year? That's fast fashion. That's H&M, isn't it? Or maybe it's just like how we assume that we should get flowers from Colombia the same day, or maybe the next day. Or maybe we should just transport our food around the world like easy. Like, I get New York, you can't grow your food, but really, we don't need to transport so much stuff. We could get a little bit more local and organic in a food economy. And maybe we could rebuild energy systems so they weren't all these mammoth dinosaurs that break down, like maybe Texas, right? Like Texas, you'd think those guys with all that oil, they'd have their act together, but no. You know what they needed? They needed solar thermal. Solar thermal power. That's what we build up in White Earth. 8th Fire Solar is what it's called. 8th Fire Solar, and we built solar thermal panels. We manufacture them on the reservation. Why? Because you could reduce 20% of your heating bill with a south-facing solar panel. And some people say, well, why don't you go for solar electricity? You could do that too. Why would I go get electricity to make heat when I could just make heat? Right. So that's what we do, solar thermal panels. And then the Red Lake tribe put up 300 kilowatts of solar. They want 13 megawatts. The first commercial solar project in North Dakota, that'd be Standing Rock, the Cannonball Solar Project, after the battle over DAPL, the battle over the Dakota Access Pipeline. They put up the first one, not North Dakota, not any utilities out there. So tribes are ready. We're rolling up our sleeves, and, our organization, Honor the Earth, and our sister organization, King, is working on a lot of these just transition, as we call it, diminishing manufacturing messes like bottle washing factories. Try that one. Try that. What if we didn't crush every glass bottle after a single use? That's what they do in other countries. They don't crush them. They don't require the energy to remake them. What you need to do is wash your dang bottles. So that's how you rebuild it. And you get all kind of jobs after that kind of economy. And then you quit outsourcing your jobs to overseas. Oh, that's right. We used to have a textile industry in this country until the 1990s. That's when we offshored it all. So I want to rebuild the textile economy. And I want to rebuild that with hemp. I want to rebuild it with hemp. Now, I've been growing hemp for 5 years. I'm on my 6th year. I'm a fiber hemp grower. It's called the New Green Revolution. Why do I do that? Because that's right, Minnesota was where the first Green Revolution came from. Minnesota, Norman Borlaug, University of Minnesota, creator of the Green Revolution. Well, we want to create the new Green Revolution, and that's hemp. Because everything you do with fossil fuels, you can replace with hemp. Besides that, it bioremediates and it grows so much faster than cotton or wood. You can make all your tissues out of it, or your paper out of hemp. Way to go. Way to go. Hempcrete housing, get rid of your concrete footprint of fossil fuels. Oh my God. There is some structural hemp, kind of looks like Lego blocks, and there's some other shit. But I'm saying that just open your minds a little bit and quit drinking the Kool-Aid of the fossil fuel economy and see that all around us, there is not only this massive movement of, slow food and local food that isn't all fossil fuel impacted, organic food. Y'all, you're all into that, right? Keep growing that economy and then cut your energy consumption. Put yourselves on a diet. put yourself on a fossil fuels diet, and then look to the just transition of the renewable energy economy. And we don't have to mine the lithium out of Bolivia right now. Let's go for a few other options before we do that, like maybe the hemp batteries or something else like aluminum batteries. We need to not mine the rest of the world for the next economy either. So be smart, be innovative, and stay strong. That's what I say, because I'm looking out there and looks like a brutal summer coming up. I think the pandemic helped us. We all got a pretty good shakeup, didn't we? We had to figure out what we valued and what we didn't, right? We all had to take kind of like a sobering stock of our level of crazy and addiction and say, hey, what's worth it? What's not worth it? Some stuff just ain't worth it. Let's just not do it, Arundhati Roy, the great Indian writer, talks about pandemic as portal. She says that in the history of the world, pandemics have always forced societies to change, and this one is no different. She asks the question, if it's a portal between one world and the next, what do you want to bring through? You want to bring your prejudices, your hatreds, your avarice, your data banks, your dirty rivers, or you want to walk through clean? I say, let's go through clean. We already shook up a lot of things. The economy's shaken up. We all just saw that. We cut our fossil fuels consumption by 10%. We realized that we don't need to get stuff around the world because we can't. Oh yeah, we noticed that when we realized that our food supplies were not safe, right? I mean, they smashed a bunch of eggs and poured, because they were building for a different economy. So more people got local, and last year, everybody started gardening. Keep it up. Build your local food system. That's what you got to do. So the shift is happening not just because of people like me, but because of the reality that we live in is something to be reckoned with. And then the social movements have caused a change. I mean, I come from Minnesota. George Floyd ignited a social movement that was long overdue. And what do we have now? We have a lot of things that are changed because of Mr. Floyd. Like, for instance, I spent a lifetime trying to get those damn Columbus statues down, right? What's down? Most of them, along with conquistadors and Confederates. They're all gone. The Washington Redskins, or who is that, right? So what I'm saying is this movement is merging, this movement is changing things. And now what we need to do is just keep it moving. So people come to us, come see us. In June, Enbridge is going to start construction, early June, and I don't know what it's going to look like up there, but people are coming up and, it's really interesting because they were all quarantined. And then we're saying, come outside. It's okay. Come outside, but be present. If you want to protect your water, get a canoe. Come with us. And so I see this transformation and so many people are coming our way. We're so grateful for them. And you just say, take a breath. You're out on your Mother Earth. But after that, there's this place and there's this transformation that is happening, and it's happening on a larger scale too. There's a single largest transfer of material wealth that's happening now. And so what I found, and I noticed it at Standing Rock, is the 1%, they may not like us, but their children do. Their children like us, and their children all showed up at Standing Rock. And you're seeing this transformation that's happening with foundations and funders, old money moving to this new generation, and they're funding land back. That's what they're funding. They're funding the restoration of land. They're funding, work to protect ecosystems. They're funding challenges to multinational corporations, and they're also coming to see us. So I see this. I just want to nurture it. I want to encourage it because we got a lot of people. And once you wake up and stay woke, you can do all kind of cool things. So, I'm saying, let's go. Enbridge is marching ahead on a pipeline that 68,000 people, or 95% of the people of Minnesota, testified against. The 5% that testified were seats filled by Enbridge's staff and employees, right? They bust in people and blocked us to the process. But, everybody knows nobody likes this pipeline, right? And so they managed to get through the system. I think that's called regulatory capture. When Canadian multinationals take over your regulatory system and get everything approved for a pipeline that nobody would approve if they had the right mind, right? So they get the thing approved. They started in December, marching ahead and destroying. This feller buncher comes in and it grabs a tree like this, it throws it to the side, grabs the top part, and then throws it to the side. It's just brutal. It's brutal what is going on up north. And they got through a chunk of the territory like that. Enbridge said they got 50% done. I'd say 35. I'm going to tell you that because I'm on the ground. And, at Standing Rock in 2016, they had one river to cross. The Dakota Access Pipeline had one river to cross. Enbridge has 22 rivers to cross. 22 rivers to cross. That shows you how much water we have in Minnesota. 22 rivers that they're going to cross. The Shell River by my house, they cross 5 times, 6 times if you count the Little Shell. So I'm like, how am I supposed to feel about that? That seems like kind of like a roll of the dice, if that river's going to be okay, right? So people are going to stand by those rivers. And then Enbridge is going to decide if they want to shoot me. If they want to shoot me and a bunch of other people to get in the pipeline. I mean, because the fact is that this is a Canadian multinational corporation that wants to make a profit. And the people of Minnesota don't want this corporation. And Enbridge has spent hundreds of millions of dollars trying to buy consent. But I'll tell you what, money does not buy you love. Money does not buy you love. And what they are going to face is tens of thousands of people who look like me, and a lot of them older. There was like 8 old ladies from Maine that got arrested last week. They called themselves the Golden Girls. They were 75 years old. When it was 10 below, they arrested 7 people in a piano one day. We're going to keep getting people arrested. And that's a sad thing, that you got to get arrested to protect your water. But you know what? It's water or oil, and I'm going for water. Anishinaabe prophecies long time ago talked about this time. Most of our Indigenous prophecies have spoken of this time. The Hopis referred to a web in the sky. Back in the day, we thought that was Star Wars. No, but it was the internet. It was the internet. That's what they were talking about because of the massive technological changes that it has brought, including us here on Zoom, right? But more than that, it is this time that we are told in our prophecies that we have a choice between 2 paths. One path, they say, is well-worn, but it's scorched. The other path, they say, is not well-worn and it's green. And it's our choice upon which path to embark. So I'm on the green path. That's my instructions. Those are about 1,000 years old, and we all got the same instructions in my community, and we're going to do that. So, each day we reaffirm our gratitude for being alive, our gratitude to our water, and then we make a good plan to do our best that day and maybe do a little better. That's it. And stand tall for the water.